Hello everyone. During the last video, we opened the topic about the negative people and how to deal with them. So there will always be negative people around us in our lives, and we cannot really clean our lives out of them. But it's important to remember that it's essential how we deal with them. After all, if we take the analogy with the ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets inside them. So if we say that the negative people are the inevitable part of our environment, we should be very cautious and attentive to how we deal with them. So it's up to us how we're going to handle the negative people. And in the previous video, I promised to you that I will share some strategies or some steps how we can handle them. It's very, very important that we act with sympathy, that we don't judge the people, because after all, we don't know every time what is the motive, the reason behind their behavior. It could be the fact that the person is in a difficult situation and he or she would like to share with us. So before we know what is happening, let's refrain ourselves from judging anyone. Once we don't judge, then we also act with more sympathy, with more understanding, and people feel this thing. So let's look at two main cases. Respective if this is a colleague or a family member or a close friend, there are two main approaches. First, we have to acknowledge. We have to acknowledge that we understand what the other person wants to share with us. This does not mean that we have to agree with the observation or news or anything that he or she wants to tell us, but we have to acknowledge. For example, if your colleague tells you, oh, it's such a terrible, awful day with so much snow and the streets are not cleaned, and I had so much trouble driving off the parkway, then we should not judge the person. We should not say anything which could be irritating to him or her, but we should say in a sympathetic way, we should acknowledge that we understand his or her difficulties. So yes, I know in the winter season it's a hassle for everyone to get around the snow and to come on time to work. I know how you feel. The second step would be to check, to feel if the other person really wants to get across some message, whether he wants to let it out of his or her system. And if this is the case, we should encourage him or her to do that. So in our example, the person could simply, we could ask the person, so what happened? Did you have any concrete difficulties or did something happen to you? And then if the person just says, oh no, it's just a little bit of extra work is one thing, or maybe the person wants to share in details. So we should diffuse the negativity by letting it out. And once this is out, then the person will feel that we are listening, that we are attentive, maybe sympathetic. And after that comes point number 3, where we can guide him or her out of the topic. So after the person, in our instance, shares the hardships in the early morning with the icy roads, we can divert the topic. We could start leading the topic. For example, we can say, yeah, the ice road is such a big problem, but have you heard about the special training drivers have to have in Sweden, where they are driving in a special ice tunnels where they exercise different techniques? And then you can drive the topic into the driving schools, the driving skills, or even if you can go a little bit further and say, yeah, but you know, the winter will not last forever, and you know, remember when it was the big summer, when it was so hot, we were praying for some from some snow or cold. And then you can really diffuse the negativity and start leading the conversation in another topic. However, if we noticed that at point 2 the person doesn't want to really share for the sake of letting it out, but just wants to spread negativity, because there are also negative people like these who enjoy to share negative news, then it's okay just to interrupt him or her and say that this information is not necessarily useful for you. Or you can be more subtle, more diplomatic, and say that you're really running after an urgent task and you have to focus on something else without necessarily saying the full truth, right? But at the end, it's important to point out that even in this case, we have to acknowledge in the beginning that we understand what he or she is bothered about, but to kindly divert the attention of the conversation. If the person is a close member of our circle, family member, friend, it's okay even to tell how we feel about him or her. So at the end, it's important to show acknowledgement, to diffuse, and to